Hello, everyone, and welcome. Of Interior Health, we would like to recognize and acknowledge the traditional and unceded territory of the Silk Nation, where we live, learn, collaborate, and work together. Welcome to Research Week 2018. Today's presentation is Research at Interior Health, a strategy refresh, presented by Dr. Yvonne and Dr. Deep Taylor. Welcome, Yvonne. Please remember to mute your lines by pressing *6.
Okay, thank you very much, Kim. This strategy refresh has been a work in progress over the last about 4 months, and Deep's here to help with any questions which may arise. But I also want to take this opportunity to thank Wendy Patillion, who did a wonderful job editing and preparing the presentation for today. I just want to say from the outset that this is not a final strategy refresh. We are in the process of consultation, and today one of the chances that we have to consult about this. So I will go fairly quickly through the slides, but I will concentrate most of the time on a review of the previous strategy, which we call Phase 1 for increasing research capacity at IH, and then what we propose in renewal of this strategy. Okay, so I suspect that most of you know that we have had that Interior Health has had roles in education, training, and research since the inception, since the establishment of the Health Authority. A research ethics board was established in 2005, but with the innovation of the UBC Southern Medical Program in 2012, I made the decision to look at the development of research at IH with more intensity. And in 2013, there was a research facilitator and 2 staff for the Research Ethics Board, but I was engaged to prepare the first research strategy, and that was endorsed by the senior team in 2014. So in the time between the endorsement and now, 4 years, there have been several outside events that have shaped our current research, the strategy that we're proposing today. One of these was the Canadian Institutes of Health Research Strategy for Patient-Oriented Research. The other one was the development of a BC wide academic health science network, and the third is the proposed establishment of an interior academic health science center, and I'll speak to both of these, to all of these as I go through the presentation. So then, the strategy for patient-oriented research is IHR's, and I must say the Ministry of Health of BC, to focus on patients in health research, and their idea is that we focus on that the right patient receives the right intervention at the right time. The BC Support Unit is a subset of the strategy for patient-oriented research, and it's a multi-partner organization across BC, really. It has a provincial hub, which is located in Vancouver, and there are regional centers in Interior, Northern, and Vancouver Island. The Interior Center is made up of Interior Health and UBC Okanagan, with input from Thompson Rivers University and UBC wide. So, the Interior Center, which is a part of SPOR, are part of the SPOR SPOR supported is to increase patient engagement, to improve knowledge translation, to help with research navigation across the organization, and to offer training and capacity building across IH. So we received funding work in these 4 areas. Next slide. So what is the BC Academic Health Science Network? Well, that's a pretty interesting development. Its aim is to connect BC's health research across the province. It also is the umbrella organization for BC's support, about which I just spoke, also for Clinical Trials BC, and also for Research Ethics BC. It has an appointed board, and it looks after the funding, administers the funding, and governs it from CIHR and the BC Ministry of Health for the implementation of SPOR support we're only talking about today. Moving to the third of these initiatives that impact our strategic plan is the Interior Academic Health Science Center. Now, this is the least developed of the 3 that I've spoken about. It involves a partnership of Interior Health, Thompson Rivers University, the University of British Columbia, at a minimum. It may increase to include other colleges, etc. So its aim is to act regionally to coordinate research activities and priorities. So we had our inaugural meeting in February this year, at which there was an agreement for the development of this center. And I think you might anticipate that this center would be involved in things like developing joint administration to help streamline and make more efficient administrative services in research. But mainly at the present time, we're talking about the development of joint positions. And so, as I said, we are now in the process of speaking with each other about what the priorities of this organization will be. Next slide, please. So I've mentioned several of these partnerships. We also have an embedded scholar program, and I don't have much time to go into that, but we can answer questions after. We have a global health research, and isn't here today, but we can also speak about that, and elder care research with Alberta and other researchers. Okay, so well, the initial strategy for increasing capacity in health research at IH, we thought of it as a phased-in process. So the first phase was really to develop research infrastructure at IH. We pointed out the low numbers of personnel dedicated to research in 2013, and so we made several changes to the infrastructure at IH. So we conducted a review of phase 1, and we did that by conducting a stakeholder survey. The research department undertook a review of the impact of research through departmental activities. And we've looked at the status of the recommendations in phase 1 in order to see where we've come, and we've conducted several consultations. Next slide, please. So the stakeholder survey was sent out to IH and some external stakeholders. We tried to include all external stakeholders. We found that 123 accessed the survey with 57 complete responses. it's not a good response generally, but it never is for this. So actually, we viewed this as a partial success at least. We found that the supports used the most were research navigation, so how to get your paper or grant written, how to get through the research ethics process. We found that people used it for support in development and conducting research methods, and research facilitation, which really extends on research navigation. People also, we were happy to see, used the research department to engage more parents, to engage communities, and to engage Indigenous groups. They also used research department to improve knowledge translation. So, identically with the first survey conducted before the first strategy was developed, the barriers to research were funding, time, and the approval processes. Now, we have worked hard to approval processes, at least those under our control, and we are still working to try and increase the time of individual researchers from across the community, so people at the front line, others who wish to conduct research processes. Funding continues to be an issue, and we've tried to address that a couple of ways in the new strategy. Next slide, please. So the research impact report was very interesting. It looked at the evaluation of research department activities conducted from the time of the launch of the phase until February 2018. So we had research infrastructure, and the main places where capacity we could show has been increased was the number of FTEs working in the research department, and also the development of a clinical research department, which was launched in 2017. Now, that was something that wasn't in phase one strategic report. And in fact, because there were outside groups as for clinical research trials, etc., I didn't think it would be something we would develop so quickly. But in fact, these avenues for clinical research kind of collapsed, and there was a groundswell, actually, of demand for the establishment of a clinical research department, which I think I'm talking for the team, we were pleased to do. Clinical research does enhance patient care, and that's in the end what research at IH is meant to do. So the leadership of the research department is the director of operations. I'm the scientific director. I'll not say overlap considerably. The other area where there have been advances, I think, are the partnerships that have been built not only with academic partners but also with a community, and we can speak about that. Answer to questions. There's been a lot of support for practice, which is, of course, very important to us, not only in acute care settings, but also in the community. And it's been important for all of the members of the research department to be a place where people want to come and ask questions and get answers. So from 3 staff in 2012, we now have 24 staff involved. Now, that's not 20 FTEs. In the clinical department, a lot of these people are working on a when they are needed format, and others are working half-time, etc. It is important that we continue to do these research impact reports, of course, to justify the need for staff in the research department. But so far, the demand has far exceeded our capacity to deliver, and so we are going to be attempting to solidify some of these positions, etc. Okay, so now moving to look at specific recommendations of phase 1. So, these was that research activity will be phased in. I think it's fair to say that we completed phase 1 a bit more quickly. We had hoped, and this is the reason for that is, quite frankly, the establishment of the SPOR support unit, because we were able then to get more funding to enable more navigation and facilitation, etc., and more opportunities to develop the patient engagement side of research activity at IH. The second one is to hire a scientific director. I wrote that in there, and so of course I got the position. No. I was recruited into the position, and been an important one, I think, several ways. Research Advisory Council, which is a council, as it says, to advise on the administration of research at IH. It was established in 2015, and the terms of reference of that council that the membership has to include from outside the organization, as well as physicians, other healthcare workers, other interested parties in research at IH.
And patient partners.
Yes, and patient partners, of course. So, it's interesting to note that the majority of research at IH has been in the areas of health services on one hand and population health on the other, and that we did predict. Because really, IH does not have facilities, nor are they necessary, I don't think, for biomedical research or that kind of more, I would say, facility-dependent kind of research. We can get that research done, however, because we have partnerships with places that do have facilities for that kind of more theoretical research. Our place is a place that wants, and healthcare institutions generally need to concentrate on applied kinds of research. We're not the ones to develop a lot of theory, although that may be necessary for some of the projects. So that's not a statement that pans all that kind of research for IH, but mostly we're interested in research that's going to affect healthcare. Next slide, please. So The other 4 recommendations, number 5, is that we have an emphasis on prevention and rural and remote healthcare. And rural and remote, so we named it in the first was chronic disease prevention, not prevention generally, and access to healthcare from rural and remote regions. In the rural and remote healthcare, we included e-technology. The recommendation to hold annual funding competition to fund seed research projects, so little grants of $10,000, $15,000, so that the goal was to help investigators get a project off the ground so they could then have a publishable piece of work and from there go on to generate ideas for grants, get approved, etc. So we have 3 of those, one in 2015, one in 2016, one in 2017. They were extremely well subscribed, and the members of the research department who helped with these annual competitions were very focused on improving the knowledge base of the applicants if they, looked in that. They were also made sure that there were good linkages with academic partners, and in my view, they were extremely well run competitions. And we haven't named one for this year because we don't yet have the funding, but it is certainly one of our goals is to regenerate that about $100,000 a year competition. I think for an institution like IH that doesn't have that many dedicated researchers, this really enhances the research capacity of the organization. In fact, makes it much more a learning institution, and we all know the pros of doing that. So we have our research relationships with academic partners. We did some of the administrative things. We have affiliation agreements with UBCO, UBC and UBCO, and we're working on the one with Drew. Also, I think more and more we have someone from UBCO who's a part of the leadership team for the SPOR support unit, and that's Nellie Oakley. And we are well aware that our success depends on strengthening those relationships. And I must say, from the university's point of view and academic partners, it is important for them to have the relationship with IH too, because this is where patients are. So they have research in the community that can be enhanced with our help and our access to certain organizations, and within care, I think it's obvious. So, research department increased from 2.5 FTEs to equivalent of 18 FTEs in 2018. I mentioned this a minute ago as well. Next slide. So, one of the consultations that is important for us to have done is that with the Patient Engagement Committee, PEIR, Engagement in Research Committee, has as its mandate the realm that truly engaging with patient partners requires a mind shift within the research committee with systemic change at all levels. Only then will research be done with patient engagement to produce outcomes that will make change betterment of everyone. That comes from our committee. And I would say the statement came set recommendations for the next phase of research at IH and with patient engagement as the kind of foundation stone. We've all learned that this shift is not easy. You noted my lapse when I didn't include patients when I said what the membership of the Research Advisory Council was. I feel worse. I didn't notice everybody doing this all the time. We're all learning how unedited, I would say, patient voices have been and how hard we're going to have to work to get their voices included in research strategy and research projects. Next slide. So another consultation we had was with Dr. Doug Kingsford. He's the Medical Information Officer, and we consulted him regarding significance of applied data sciences for growing research environment at IH. I think it's cleaner that research must have this aspect as one of its priorities. However, I have to admit that really in this case we got a lot of direction from a certain vice president and the CEO himself that we did have to start because for the institution as a whole, the use of data is just it's being looked at more and more closely and trying to get systems in place that speak to each other and that can be interrogated for whatever parameters we want is getting more and more mandatory. So data sciences help to leverage existing data for use in improving healthcare. And when we talked to Doug about what kind of team would be necessary to get such a group a priority off the ground, he said we would need experts in software engineering, data science, subject matter, so that means the content, a matter of the health professionals themselves, and those with research methods. And he said, you know, some of these might be fulfilled by one person, but nonetheless, we need this kind of expertise. And so we'll interact with the science and health informatics methods plan SPOR support unit hub I talked about. Okay. Well, what about two? So in the first phase, we developed the infrastructure at IH. And two, we need to do a couple of things. One and two, but we need to bolster the number of independent researchers at IH. We need to find a way to do this. And although if you ask me what was more important for the institution, I think bolstering the number of any kind of researcher is on a par, if not more important than this. However, it is time now to do this so that we can really excel in the field and draw in peer-reviewed funding. So I think it's time now to develop business plans for how we can hire independent researchers at IH researchers whose time is protected for research could be partially protected or more research or more, and who all have a record or obvious educational background in research. So, of course, we don't want to let the infrastructure flounder. We want to build on the infrastructure that was established in phase 1. We will encourage further stakeholder engagement with patient and Aboriginal partners. I haven't talked much about Aboriginal partnership engagement, but we have a practice leader whose job is to enhance partnerships with Aboriginal communities, and we can talk more about that later. I would say we have made some inroads there. There are now some very, not only good relationships, but active relationships with Aboriginal partners. Engagement with patients through the patient engagement has also been hard to get off the ground, but I think we're off the lag part of the curve now. It's getting easier to know how to do this, how to meaningfully engage patients, because a lot of this has been kind of tokenism, and we are committed as an organization, of course, to more than tokenism. We will continue to solidify partnerships with external researchers and institutions, and I've described how the SPOR support unit does that. But even to a greater extent, I think, will be the full development of the Academic Health Science Center, because that's broader in scope. However, the SPOR support unit has really allowed us to step into relationships with UBCO, which has set the stage, I think, for the Academic Health Science Center. So it was a necessary and important part of it, and it was really gratifying to see the response of UBCO to our asking them for Nellie's time, in essence, and that's a wonderful boon to us for this solidification. And some of the relationships with organizations have not gained as much traction. We do continue to work hard on developing those. I mean, you know, people are busy, they have their practice in their own institution, let alone, you know, interacting with others. So we try and show them how these partnerships will enhance internal work, etc. We have an interesting number of conferences with the Rural Health Services Network, which has also been very important to us for enhancing engagement with patients, engaging with Aboriginal communities, and also engaging with university partners. So we hold those at different parts in the region. So one was in Kelowna, one was in Kamloops, and the last one this summer was in Nelson. And they feel the improvement of the, I would say, interaction and discussions with each of these, and it was quite gratifying to see the involvement of the Aboriginal community at our last. It's certainly everyone was speaking their mind, and that means the relationship is strong enough to have meaningful conversations. Okay, another aspect of phase 2 was to reset research priorities. So, slide, please. So, section 1 is about what we need from senior leadership and for operational support and other support. We see the support, and I would say continued leadership of SET as critical to the further development of research at IH. It's not just us. Everyone knows that senior team is not behind research and enhancing research capacity. It won't happen. The bottom line for us is that research enhances health. There have been several words about it, and so there's a reason for enhancing research. It's healthcare. It also attracts individuals. It makes it easier to recruit and retain the best health professionals. Again, hands down, all the research shows that. And we hope that we count on our linkages across IH to foster operational commitment and approval for research. So we do a lot of background work with individuals from across the organization. We'll understand what our aims are, and of course, if you're doing this without the support of the senior team, people will find it a lot easier to not pay attention. Next slide, please. So in our second it's about research funding and dedicated time. To recruit, we say at this stage, 1 senior researcher and 2 junior researchers to lead research in 1 or more IH priority research areas. So that's one big block, and we hope to have partners in that sort of endeavor from academic institutes, but also from foundations across IH and, of course, from IH itself. There's also a subset of funding that will be needed for time for research from people already here. So for IH staff, which includes physicians, the physicians have been crying out for protected time, and I think we're drawing to actually something looks to be in the offing, and so it's looking promising. How are we going to sustain research infrastructure? We need to sustain the regional practice lead positions. There are 4 of these positions, 6? Oh, God. 6 of these important positions. Some of them I'm not calling research leads yet, I guess, practice leads. But we also need continued funding for the scientific director of research. Each of the other health authorities has funding for a scientific director and for a director of operations. So this is kind of par for the course for administration of research in healthcare institutions. We also need additional space for recruitment researchers and clinical research units at other IH sites. We've been so successful at getting a research space at KGH and to some extent at RIH. Pretty big space. RH has is identified, but there need to be other space. Next slide. Okay, how are we going to foster patient engagement? So we did was to take the recommendations that the Patient Engagement Committee sent to us and integrated into our thinking. So needed to formulate and create a framework for the meaningful engagement of patients in healthcare research. And I think the Patient Engagement Committee is hard work in doing this. There has to be an ideological shift in power, engaging patients as partners. Sounds hard to say that, but it's the truth. Find a safe space for patients to engage, incorporate patient values into research design and conduct. Not so easy a mandate, but this committee will help us understand what that takes. Utilize patient potential to the fullest possible capacity, i.e. avoid tokenism. There are patients out there who really want to be involved in a meaningful way and not just as, kicking the box for a patient partner. Patient partners engage in research that's based on their own lived experience, and that makes them an expert in care. Next slide, please. So 5 is the research priorities. So many of the other recommendations are continuation of past initiatives, and this one and the one about recruitment of independent researchers, I think mark change. So if we put this one in the research priorities for phase 1, they were the prevention of chronic disease and to access to healthcare from rural and remote regions, which included technological means of access. So for phase 2, we are proposing implementation science, but we've added now primary care, which is very important as much of our health authority is rural, and chronic disease prevention from the old. Data science I've already talked about. The health of rural and remote populations is a carryover, but we now added, in addition to applied data science and implementation in primary care, Aboriginal health. And Leslie leading this initiative, I think she already has a CIHR grant looking at the vulnerability of populations like this, and I expect there will be more partnered grant applications, etc. Okay, next slide. Are we going to continue to engage IH staff and physicians in research? We need some communication and education strategies. We are proposing the reinstatement of the annual internal competition to fund seed research projects. I've given rationale for that. We need an expanded distribution network for the research newsletter, which seems simple, but it's not simple. Making sure that everyone who could use the news we have gets it. We want to expand research education curriculum, topic, promote, and provide this to a bigger audience. We have a lot of research education opportunities. And if you want a list of those, we get those too. However, there is quite a big demand for them, right? We have sessions that are full to capacity. We have some programs, for instance, one on publishing your own work that have been oversubscribed. So the one thing for all of us about working at IH in research is that there is a huge appetite for the conduct of research and to be a part of research institutions. Okay, we want to celebrate. We want to promote research stories and publications, which we've been trying to do. And my experience always requires more effort, and never done this one. We celebrate the dissemination of research results through KXT activities, and we need to publish lists of research studies being conducted in IH. And we've been doing that partially through the studies that come to the Research Ethics Board, active studies, but to do some searching to see what else is happening. Okay, so I don't know if we thought this would take 10 years, but actually they will, especially if we're recruiting outside researchers to come. I would say that if this were for the next 10 years, I would say we don't need just one senior researcher. We probably need 3 or 4 to be recruited along with junior researchers. This will continue to grow a robust research environment over the next 10-year period, at which point the 10 years comes in because maybe from 6 to years, or maybe before that, a new way of organizing research at IH will be developed. There are research institutions at institutes, at other organizations. The kind of entity which would be a draw for funding might be something we look at. So hallmarks of success will include recruitment of prominent researchers from many disciplines and health professions into signature research programs. I love that phrase. Peer-reviewed and private funding and vital partnerships with academic institutions. And that's all I have to say, which was quite wonderful.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Does anybody on the line have any questions for Yvonne today? You can feel free to enter in the chat box or unmute your line. Okay. While you're calling that, anybody in the room have any questions for Yvonne or for the research department? We have quite a few of us here today.
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. I'm curious around the barriers. So barriers, they've been over many years in the literature, and specifically around time. I know some of the regulations will address literature time and user of research time, but I think at time and at just-in-time of research, of research results, that doesn't a long period of time in our environment. We need done yesterday, and so how do we build that back into the recommendations around to be able to use research in a just-in-time manner?
So that's been a major challenge with implementation. We call it information science, right? And I think some things I've seen, and bring me, yeah. Okay, you answer and I'll add what.
Okay, so I think there's 2 ways to, based on what we saw from the stakeholder consultations and what we know. There's time as in yes, there's really no time, and there's time as in part of that what I would call the research-friendly culture. So time as in real time, but we need to start really serious about protected time for people that are in positions that have research as part of their mandate, that we actually honor that, because there's a lot of descriptions that actually have research. And so being able to actually carve out some of that time, plus have money come forward for protected time so that we create it as an infrastructure deliverable, for example. The second part is the sense of research in many pockets, not just in career, but in health period. As you know, Jen, is that if you don't really understand how, when it's for me, publications only go so far, so if you read a paper, so what? What we have been doing in the research department is really working through how research methodology can support decision-making and solution finding in new and innovative ways, without necessarily doing research, or also look at the literature studies that may be applicable somewhere else in the world, but you need really critical of how you may apply that within a local thing. So how people thinking through how that information is, that evidence is used or it's a gap. So I've seen a huge increase in our consultation services around the ability of research, generally speaking, and I think it is starting to quell number one, the notion of the perception of time and research taking a long time. Two, having it a little bit more meaningful so people are using it actively. And I guess the third thing I'll say is we have a very applied focus in terms of, so sometimes we are starting to get better, especially with people like Carol Brooks, who does a lot of work with us. She's a chair in knowledge translation in Canada, and has really set the bar for how do you do very comprehensive research and give information in a time kind of way as you go through. She's done some really excellent work on giving some information that may not be fully prepared yet in partnership, when you're in partnership through collaboration within the health systems. And I he's definitely done a good job of that.
I think where I think about it from a parallel stream and from an evaluation perspective is the developmental evaluation.
Yeah.
And a formal process of evaluation. But that is just time turnover information is really important in our current environment.
But I would also argue in some cases it's okay to pause, take some time, and use the research process to step back and out so that you get that cycle. Anything else?
I was going to say, you know, that this is the question everybody's dealing with right now. How do we be faster? Because inherent in the research process is also you have to be not only do your project, and if it's really specific to one organization, you know, your point is perfect. If Fred is required, then there's going to be additional time as other places get on board, right? But it ought to be to speed up this whole process, because I think there is a huge demand for demonstration of ability of research projects, right? I think that demand is pushing everybody to look hard at what's happening to slow this down, right? And that is time. But anyway.
So there was one question quickly of just asking who was speaking. So that was Jennifer Miller, Corporate Director of Health Planning. And addressing the question was Yvonne and detailing. Sorry. And then there is one question online as well, but I think there's one in the room first.
I'm Victor.
Hello, Victor. Welcome.
I'm glad to be here. I have a specific talk later on my HSN app, but also part of Island Health. And because of that, I saw your presentation very interesting. We have many.
You're part of Island Health?
Island Health Authority.
What the heck are you doing here? You're welcome.
Victor's come to present Red Cap for the Interior after the
I remember seeing that.
Yes.
So that's the reason I'm here. And as I said, I'm also part of the research and capacity building for health. So what you presented is very well presented. We are working parallel. With many things that we are doing very similar. I'm interested to see that. What I want to point out is the support that you are looking for bringing researchers, senior research for research to expand the capability. So I really would like to see that in energy health. The other part on your question that I think we are doing, we are getting close working with our quality improvement concepts to speed up, to provide exactly what you mentioned, same methodologies. Goals may be a little bit different. Actually, the difference between research and quality improvement are blurred. Sometimes there is quality improvement and there is
I got the spectrum from quality improvement
that's
to
exactly
research,
true.
right? Yeah.
And we are doing things that, and it's going quicker, or we are meant to do that because we can provide methodologies, resources, experience in our group to work in other areas. So it's something that is working well and is keeping us busy. And also, as you said, engagement on our own team, the team on the leadership on the institution. Because it's a practical organization. We have to provide health services. So that identification of the goals for the institution.
Yes.
So we are
Oh, well, thank you very much for doing this during what is an important week for us. We do have a good relationship with the research team, research department at Island Health, and it's very interesting to want to know when we have a problem, we ask them what, and it's been a great way to, not spin your wheels, not to reinvent the wheel, etc. Yeah.
I'm aware of those relationships, particularly relationship with Hollywood, sharing experiences and growing together, and that's part of the talk.
QI thing is really interesting to me. I would love for a tighter relationship. As a matter of fact, one of the recommendations we had put in the first phase was for a better relationship. And maybe we need to consider that again for this report, because more and more, I think there have been good interactions over this.
Yeah, we've got some strong quality improvement research going. So, yes.
They have given us another recommendation, or part of a recommendation.
So
Thank you very much, yeah.
There's 2 minutes left, and we have one question online first. I want to make sure we address it because it was sent in a few minutes, or 5 minutes ago. Will there be any support for IH staff who would like to complete graduate programs such as Masters and PhD to develop their research skills?
So I'm going to define support as non-monetary, so we don't have funding. However, we've got a very successful track record at supporting people who apply for funding through letter support, our embedded scholarship program. So in a nutshell, we actually do that work quite a bit. We had 4 global health students that just left us do their thesis work here. It's something that we are doing. So to get details, whoever asked that question, get a hold of Kim, and we can respond specifically to whatever it is you're asking.
In the room, anybody else have a question? No?
Nice.
Yeah.
I have one. Sean here from Farm
I was wondering about you, Sean.
I think it's really, really exciting. I have a question on the aim to increase the number of independent researchers, and I maybe not down in the weeds, but was there any consideration to look at different models like clinician scientists, things like that, so you can kind of take the science into practice a little bit, perhaps more?
Yep.
We did consider clearly this because it's a way being an academic institution and healthcare that is beneficial to both partners. We have had one instance of somebody in that position. There are lots of administrative hurdles,
Sure.
but there are no ideological hurdles. This is where we have to go.
And we're working on it.
Yeah, actively.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to everybody for joining us online, everybody in the room, for Yvonne for presenting today. And thank you. And we hope bet you'll just for more Research Week 2018. Take care, everyone.